but you can damn sure bet we're gonna back that up with some facts. Get some. Welcome to Mental Health Perspectives, the hard truth. To pave the way forward and to reach the penultimate realization of the self, we got to start making some headway in terms of understanding the limitations of the systems of support we have to work with. So, to isolate the topic a bit more, we're going to be talking about Canada and the US specifically. Now, I'd like to be able to say that they're doing the best they can with the limited resources that they have. Nope, I don't buy it either. But we'll get into that as we go along. So while we're 100% sure that people and their foibles are universal, and I can cite the Dunning-Kruger effect here, the Peters principle, cognitive bias, the just world hypothesis, and there's probably more that I could add to that to support this argument, I'm just going to say we feel and we see through the many correlations that this is going to be consistent for a lot of places. Okay? How are we going to do this is by featuring a guest speaker that's going to be doing response videos in response to these videos. So I'd like you to welcome, in the next video, Psylord from his YouTube channel that will feature in the description for this video. Also, we're going to feature the sources that we use to gather our information, just so that you know everything's on the up and up. So don't forget to check out his channel too while you're at it. I mean, he's got a lot of great content out there. He talks about radionics, psionics. He makes some fantastic audio videos, and he's just generally a great guy. We're going to feature his response video after this one, then the reply to that, and so on and so forth. Now, to get started, there's a video from a former psychotherapist named Daniel Mackler, who we're going to put in the description as well for you, who retired from psychotherapy practice in 2010. His video is an amazing inside critique of psychotherapy, and I think it deserves a lot more traction than what it's received. In his video, he actually says, and I quote, "I don't think anybody needs psychotherapy." Wow. While I think some people need the professional guidance of a therapist in the sense of providing a compassionate and socially supportive role, in some, yes, I don't necessarily think anybody needs psychotherapy any more than they could benefit from having a positive and nurturing social relationship that doesn't cost $300 a session. That's typical. And nobody can really afford that anyway. Most people that actually support everybody else that makes more money and obviously can afford that. But anyway, we're not going to talk about that just yet either. And that's not to undermine the role of psychotherapy, since it provides 75% efficacy versus no treatment, according to the American Psychological Association on understanding psychotherapy and how it works in 2016. But numbers are a fickle thing, aren't they? As of now, the population of Canada is 38.01 million people. That's according to STATSCAN. So if we extrapolate based on those numbers, that is 10 million people in Canada alone, or nearly 1/3 of the population, that doesn't receive a benefit from psychotherapy. Furthermore, that's 5 people in every 19 people treated that don't derive a benefit from psychotherapy. So that's a pretty big figure when you think about it. Those are 5 people who are going to take a long time to recover from their mental health challenges. Let me put it to you this way. I've actually taken a course from Harvard University. It was an elective course, but it was about the effects of prolonged psychosis in adolescence. Now, while there's some very big differences between an adolescent brain and a non-adolescent brain, the key thing to take away here is the fact that prolonged non-diagnosis and treatment leads to the exacerbation of symptoms, which means the longer that person has to go without resources, the worse off they are in terms of being able to develop even resilience, recovery, or anything substantial in the way of the improvement of the quality of their life. By the way, 1 in 5 Canadians have a form of mental health mood disorder. When we look at it that way, that one person doesn't have a very good chance of acquiring the supports they need, now do they? Now, it's a sensitive topic for some people, but during the pandemic, the Government of Canada took some initiatives to reverse the political tailspin of years of neglect on the mental health support infrastructure. If you can call it infrastructure, that might be my opinion. Yes, they waited until things got so dire that an existential global health event catastrophized the regular mental health system, plus what they don't talk about, substance abuse. And we'll talk a bit more in depth about how the substance abuse side later, but for now, I want to look at some facts and figures that are relevant to this conversation. This is the projected outcome of opioid-related deaths until June 2022. If we've discovered anything from predictive modeling during the 2 years of COVID, it's a best guess scenario at best. Look at the death toll in 2016. It rises year after year until it hits 2019. What happened? According to the Canadian Institute for Health Information, they had this to say. In 2015, CIHI received 4 years of targeted funding from Health Canada to establish key metrics and publicly report data on opioid use and harms across the country. This funding agreement ended on March 31st, 2019, and the last opioid-specific report was released in October of 2019. I wonder why the information dropped all of a sudden, as some politician somewhere might take that chart and say, hey, look what we did in 2019. You know what they really did? They took money away from programs that actually needed the money. That's right. That's your government with just trying to save the tax dollar. Trying to save the tax dollar so that we don't have to provide mental health supports for critical infrastructure systems. Anyway, so with the obvious perception of the crisis getting worse and worse, the government stopped funding the metrics that give us the data. You know, the best guess data, remember. And the numbers dropped. That doesn't seem like a big coincidence to me. Just saying. So who is being affected by this opioid crisis? Well, according to a study performed by Public Health Agency of Canada, this is who. The opioid crisis has affected every region of the country, although some jurisdictions have been impacted more than others. As of 2016, apparent opioid-related deaths and hospitalization rates were highest in the western provinces of BC, Alberta, Yukon, and the Northwest Territories. Nationally, most apparent opioid-related deaths occurred among males. Individuals between 30 and 39 years of age accounted for the greatest proportion. Literally, people my age dying from opioid-related deaths during this time, okay? Current evidence suggests regional age and sex differences with respect to health outcomes, especially when synthetic opioids are involved. Okay, so basically, they have a huge, giant demographic. They have one specific target area of males from 30 to 39, and they're saying that, oh, it accounts for the greatest proportion. So what exactly is that if you cut the funding for the program in 2019, and you're already telling us, in essence, that you don't actually know what the distribution is, okay? These are people that are trained in statistics, statisticians. That's a tough one, eh? Not really. I'm just a little tired. Anyway, however, differences between data collection methods and reporting requirements may impact the interpretation and comparability of reported data. Well, isn't that just the cat's meow? Conveniently, the areas that were responsible for reporting the information either didn't report all the information or they misreported information. Well, how the hell are we supposed to know what's going on when this is the case? Predictive modeling is based on these kinds of figures. So how the hell can we have an accurate picture of what's happening out there if the regions in question can't even get it together enough to send in some accurate data. Take that from a guy who does data entry for a living. This guy. Okay? Accuracy is pretty important. So they know, but they don't know. But what they do know is it's getting worse. I can tell you it's going to get worse in a very... you know what? I can tell you very personally how it's going to get wrong. Okay? I have a friend, let's call her Mrs. N, and she has been through the system for quite a long time. She has moved from place to place because she can't really afford a stable home. She can't find adequate mental health supports. She also has a physical disability that limits her vision, and she doesn't receive proper supports for that either. She lives in a small southwestern Ontario town called Chatham-Kent. Now, the problem in her situation is that everybody that she knew in Chatham-Kent that she grew up with is now dead from an opioid overdose. So let's look at the Mackler scope, which is Public Health Agency of Canada telling us that it's a pretty bad problem. And then let's look at this personal situation and realize that Public Health Canada has no idea how bad the situation really is. COVID isolation, mishandled public health agendas, the already existing neglect of the system have compounded the poor quality of life for everybody in Canada, but no more so than already afflict those people who are already suffering from substance abuse, man. The hard truth is it's much worse than anybody knows, and the government is putting in the most minimal effort possible to deal with a growing mental health crisis that will overshadow the pandemic for decades. And by the way, this is only one segment of the mental health spectrum. We're not even talking about depression, anxiety, autism, schizoaffective, bipolar, or any other disorder. This is only the opioid epidemic, okay? And we're not even going that deep into it yet. We're going deeper than that still, but not just today. I think about the subject maybe more than others because I'm a survivor. I have lived through addiction and substance abuse, and I had to do it with little to no resources. My resiliency might be a bit above average, and anybody that thinks that that's a factor, remember, everybody's different. Nobody's built that way necessarily, and some people's home life and the institutions, agencies, and the general environment they grew up in is not the same from person to person. I'm no different than anybody else, and to be honest, this is about the person, not the statistic. Well, thanks for joining us in the first part, and we can't wait to see the response that Psylord has. Love talking to this guy. So, when you have the chance, just go to Adapt FPM, the link down in the description, and check out our website. We've got lots of great resources for you waiting. So go ahead and take advantage because, well, it's free.